Welcome guys, welcome back to Minko's Corner once again. I'm your host Mikoi. Today we're going to be watching another video as you can see on Sabaton. We're back today with the torpedoes and the submarines. Today we're going to be watching Wolfpack Part 2, the torpedoing. I don't know what it's about. Maybe it's about the torpedoes, who knows. I hope you have a great day guys. If you like my reaction, leave a like, subscribe, and yeah.
In the first episode about the song Wolfpack, we talked about the rise of the German submarines.
But there's a lot more to their story.
I'm Pat from Sabaton,
And I'm Indy Nidell.
and you're watching Sabaton History Channel.
Yeah.
To their own shore came the World War descending and leading the beauty west.
I am sure that no one knows so much about dealing with U-boats in the Atlantic and the mine menace around our shores and harbors of any kind as the British Admiralty. Not because we are cleverer or braver than others, but because in two wars our existence has depended upon overcoming these perils. When you live for years on end with mortal danger at your throat, you learn in a hard school. Winston Churchill, 1951. When German submarines were once more sent to sea in 1935, many young sailors of the Kriegsmarine were reminded of the tales of the Great War. Back then, the German U-boat fleet had been a fearsome menace that sought to starve Britain out of the war. Their commanders nicknamed the first generation of U-boats canoes because of the old rudimentary equipment and the lack of a compartmentalized interior. Otto Kretschmer served on one of the new U-boats that
I think I know this guy. But 1912 until 1998. You know what's the most impressive to me is people who go through horrible events like the Second World War and so many cataclysmic events and somehow survive. It's not like they're civilians and they're like living in the woods. The guy's a freaking U-boat commander, ace apparently. So he sunk more than 5 boats. So the guy is at the thick of it. You know, he could die at any moment for years, and he survived until he was 80 years old.
that was sent into the Atlantic. U-35's first mission was to intervene in the Spanish Civil
Talk about luck and skill.
War in 1937 by laying mines around the Bay of Biscay. The mission was rather uneventful, but it gave the crews a feel for the potential of the Grey Wolves and why they had been so dreaded in the Great War. While everything seemed quiet and calm on the surface, deep down in the sea they silently lurked, waiting for their chance to strike. In June 1940, Kretschmer once more departed for war in the Atlantic, this time in personal command of a top-of-the-line Type 7 U-boat. U-99 was an excellent submarine, sturdy and powerful.
Was this the U-boat that was able to go to the harbor of New York City? I don't know if you guys have heard the story, but I watched a footage of where this U-boat, this German U-boat, was on the Long Island coast and was able to see New York City through. There was footage of New York City in 1940 something. It was insane, and you couldn't go to the harbor to sink ships because it was very, dangerous.
Powerful enough to dive deep and prevail on the long, hazardous journeys through the ocean. During the German campaign in the West, it was U-99's job to attack the Allied supply lines and cause as much damage as possible. The Atlantic was Britain's Achilles heel, and at the time, rich with tankers and merchant ships. Although the Royal Navy had introduced the protective convoy system early on, the crews were still unfamiliar with anti-submarine techniques, and Kretschmer's attacks were extraordinarily daring. When a convoy was sighted, U-99 shadowed the unsuspecting ships from afar, often letting itself be overtaken by the guarding destroyers. In the dark of night, it resurfaced and slipped into the formation unnoticed. Kretschmer then closed in on the biggest
That's ballsy, man. That's ballsy. You resurface, and everybody thinks that you're part of the team. You know.
target to about 600 meters, the safest distance from which to launch a successful torpedo. Aimed right at the middle of the ship, just under the central keel plate, the ensuing explosion usually ripped any merchant ship apart. If not, the U-boat's surface gun would punch more holes in. Like a fox in the henhouse, Kretschmer wreaked havoc from within the convoys themselves. For the rest of the year, The German U-boat scourge was on a seemingly unstoppable rampage, as we saw in Part 1. Operating from occupied France or Norway, they targeted inexperienced convoys, often traveling from as far away as South Africa or Australia towards the English Channel. Like the pilots in the skies, U-boat commanders became aces, celebrated heroes of Nazi propaganda, together with Gunther Prien of U-47 and Joachim Schepke.
Yeah, most of them died. Even though they were aces, their luck ran out. I mean, you have to be very successful and very, good at your job to be not only an ace but survive the war. But then, to survive, you have to be the luckiest.
Of U-100, Otto Kretschmer was one of the 3 U-boat darlings of the press. They were the 3 knights of the high seas, bestowed with greatest honors, who would soon see Britain brought to its knees. After not even a year in service, Kretschmer, the Knight Raider, had sunk more tonnage than any other commander. Over 250,000 tons of shipping were now on the ocean floor, attributed to the shiny golden horseshoe of U-99.
And upon the North Atlantic lies the silence of the seas. And on the quietest night, in the darkest hour, the Kriegsmarine appear.
February 22nd, 1941, U-99 went on a hunting expedition once again. Prien was already underway, and Kretschmer was scheduled to meet with Schepke's Wolfpack. Throughout March, the submarines were once more successful. U-99 was credited with sinking 8 ships in just 11 days. With his last torpedo fired, Kretschmer was heading home, but he was suddenly surprised by 2 British destroyers. U-99 made an emergency dive, but at 200 meters depth, the boat was suddenly shaken by explosions. The destroyers were dropping depth charges, and the men were thrown about. Lights were knocked out, and the glass dials of the instruments sprung. Then water broke into the control room, and the depth gauge stopped working. Deeper and deeper they sank, the worst nightmare of every U-boat crew. There was a reason submarines were also known as iron coffins. In total darkness, they sank to at least 500 meters, and the pressure pushed at the ship's hull. Any minute now, they would be crushed to death. Kretschmer had no choice. He blew the ballast tanks, and the U-boat shot back up to the surface. They surfaced right in front of the destroyers. The British opened fire, and machine gun bullets rattled off the submarine's hull. Kretschmer ordered everyone out of the tower, the official sign that the submarine was surrendering. Everyone except the officers who were busy destroying the secret papers and, most importantly, the coding machine, the Enigma. Kretschmer was among the last to escape the boat, which promptly sank back to the depths of the sea. The crew of U-99 went into captivity. Over the coming weeks, as he was interrogated, Kretschmer learned the bitter reality that the war had begun to turn against the German U-boats. Prien was dead, so was Schepke. Kretschmer was surprised by the amount of intelligence the British had gathered about the German U-boat operations. They knew everything about Dönitz, our top personnel, the submarine captains, everything. We didn't know anything about them except that they were the enemy. The loss of...
the breaking of the Enigma was a true breakthrough, and I'm gonna take a leap of faith that that's where they got the information from. I doubt they could get all of that information only from spies. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it all comes from the breaking of the Enigma. I don't know in which year it happened, so maybe I'm a little bit too early here, but yeah, man. I mean, it's when you have that realization. And I have a question: why didn't the Germans know more? Because didn't they have spies? I don't know.
3 of its most acclaimed U-boat commanders in a single month was a major blow to the Kriegsmarine, and it only went downhill from then on. After the British finally captured one of the Enigmas intact, they were able to decipher the German codes. With new radar systems and more effective countermeasures now on nearly every ship, the war on the high seas had taken a dangerous turn for the Germans. In late August 1942, 5 U-boats left the submarine base of Saint-Nazaire to operate off the South African coast. The North Atlantic had become a dangerous place for U-boat aces, and to regain the initiative, the 5 submarines formed a battle group, a Wolfpack. This Wolfpack, under the codename Eisbär, Polar Bear, was to assist and support each other during the hunt for convoys in the far south. Iceberg didn't get far in its search for trouble. Near Ascension Island, U-156, under command of Werner Hartenstein, spotted the smokestacks of the former passenger liner Laconia. En route to Cape Town, the Laconia was now a passenger liner in name only. Armed with 10 guns, depth charges, and a radar system, the Laconia now served as a British troop ship. Shortly after 8 a.m., though, two of U-156's torpedoes struck and a huge explosion rocked the ship. Seeing Laconia sink, Hartenstein was just about to rejoin the Wolfpack when he saw hundreds of people jumping from the ship. No one had expected a full troop ship traveling alone and unescorted on this route. It became clear why soon, as the pleas for help were not in English, but were mostly in Italian. Laconia had been transporting 1,500 Italian prisoners of war and 160 of their Polish guards.
Oh.
This changed everything. Hartenstein radioed back to Grand Admiral Donitz explaining the situation. 2 years earlier, it would have been a matter of principle to stay and help, but this was 1942. Any moment, an Allied plane or warship could appear on the horizon. Still, the Wolfpack commanders could not stand idly by while hundreds of people, many of them even allies, drowned. Donitz gave permission to mount a rescue operation as long as the Wolfpack was not endangered. Hartenstein opened his communication channel to the Allies. He declared in an unencrypted message what was going on and that he would not attack any Allied ship that joined the rescue. To emphasize their intentions, the Wolfpack put bright Red Cross flags on their decks as they began rescuing friend and foe alike. The operation took all day and night, and there was trouble. Many Italians accused their captors of being kept locked away while the ship sank, and that many were shot at or bayoneted as they tried to reach the lifeboats. Despite the tensions, Wolfpack Eisbär was able to save at least 400 of the 1,500 Italians from immediate death. But just as the next day dawned, they spotted a plane flying towards them. It was an American bomber who circled for several minutes high above them. Then suddenly the bombs fell. The first exploded right in the middle of the lifeboats. The fourth bomb fell close to U-156, causing light damage. This was the moment Hartenstein had feared. Without a choice, he ordered all British survivors to leave his boat and started the engines. The duty to his men and the Wolfpack came first. Again, they radioed High Command, who urged them to withdraw at once. Hartenstein was furious that neither his unencrypted rescue message nor the Red Cross flags had been respected. With no other option, they loaded their boats with as many Italians as possible and dove for...
Yeah, I believe, well, you can say the Americans, they were honorless or they took the cheap shot, whatever you want to say. I believe that it was the right call for the Germans. For the Americans, it was the wrong call for the Germans. I think the Germans should have bounced and let them die. And I know it sounds really, really callous, but you have to look at the big picture here, because why would the Americans respect that? I wouldn't. Would you? I mean, maybe, I don't know. But by 1942, first of all, what the Germans did, while you may say it's horrible, it really is. He didn't have to do that. He said, listen, guys, this is the situation. We're going to save those people. Don't attack us. And the Americans were like, bitch, I'm American, bitch. And they attacked. Now, do I think the Americans made a wrong choice? I think they saw an opportunity to sink 5 submarines. Okay? I think what the Germans should have done, it's very difficult, because both actions are difficult to do. One side, you're risking all of your men and 5 submarines on the expected honor of your enemy. You don't know who's in the potential plane that might attack you, or in the potential boat. Maybe they're psychopaths. They don't give a fuck. On the other hand, it's difficult. Listen, I'm not saying it's an easy decision. What should you do? Should you tell them to, you know what, let them die, 1,500, whatever? or you rescue them, but then you risk fulfilling the mission. You might die. Are you willing to risk your life for them? That's the question. Are you willing to put your life on the line for them and your troops? I would not. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't, because it's like. But then it makes it difficult because some of them are allies, Italians. So.
Cover. The sinking of the Laconia was, of course, one of many tragic events of the war. From the ruthless attack by the U-boat to the failed rescue attempt in the face of merciless bombing, helpless people were repeatedly caught up in it. From the depths of the sea to the heights of the sky, no place was safe from the war. The immediate consequence of the attack was that Grand Admiral Dönitz issued the infamous Laconia Order. From then on, all U-boat commanders were ordered to not undertake rescue operations of the enemy anymore. Rescue attempts, he stated, would contradict their most basic demands of the war, to destroy hostile ships and their...
And that's, there are consequences. The Americans, I believe, do I say they were short-sighted? I don't know. Because how many rescue attempts were there? Was this the first one? Was this the second one? Were they happening all around? I don't know. But it was... I don't know.
crews. The order ended with a single demand: be harsh. You know, it's interesting that we're talking about German submarines and we have a German plane behind us. So it's nice to keep the whole military theme. And before you say anything, it reminds me of something that I've wanted to ask you, but I've never gotten around to asking you. Now, they don't have anymore, but they used to have compulsory military service in Sweden, lumpen, as it's called. I mean, some of your countries probably have a similar thing. I don't know when they stopped that. I know kind of when. So I don't know if you were old enough that you had to do it or if it was after that. So how did that go for you?
I was old enough that it was mandatory for me to try out and do my best.
Okay.
I was not trying out my best. I was entering this where you go and you do the tests and examinations and then they decide you're gonna be that or this or that.
Okay.
And I went there with the intention that I had either I wanted to go all in for a career and become a fighter pilot.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Or a submariner.
Right, okay, yeah. Okay, and why those two choices other than adventure?
Nothing. It's just the adventure. No, it was always flying. Always was attractive to me.
Okay. Oh, Rickard, you fly, right? Say that you fly so people can hear.
I fly.
See, he flies. He flies.
Yeah, Rickard is handling the camera. He's a pilot and he's got a plane.
Okay, but back to you being the pilot.
Yeah. No, I wanted the adventure.
Yeah.
And as we talked about also before, that the flying aces, they were treated a little bit like differently. And
Yeah,
stuff.
they were the stars. They were the rock stars.
And I guess that was the appealing thing when you were younger. You want to be that. You don't want to be the muddy guy.
No, not the infantry.
You don't want to be that.
But what about submarines? Because, the submarine guys, they don't really get to be seen like the flying ace rock
That's
stars.
true. But, okay, I guess that came from my father, who suggested that my length would make me ideal for being on a tight little ship.
This is true.
And I'm not afraid of being locked inside and stuff like that. And I don't mind being away for a long time. Obviously, touring. Then I wouldn't know that when I was this age, but now I know that I would be able to handle being away very, very long time.
Sure.
I think that it would fit me actually to be that.
So you did the tests.
Yeah, I did the tests, and but somewhere along there, I realized it was impossible to change the outcome to become what I wanted to be.
Okay.
And eventually, I'm not going to be there.
Okay.
So then I changed my my strategy during the tests. And suddenly, I wanted to be performing as horrible as possible.
Right.
So,
what happens if you perform as horrible as possible then?
The last test, so to say, is the psychology evaluation. And I was called in there, and the woman
Psychopath?
who was doing the evaluation about me, she was looking at my results from first, like, oh, your results, you have good physics, you don't have any problems. And then there's an intelligence test where you can fill in things like, oh, this.
Yeah.
And as I was filling in that, I was initially doing very well.
Right.
And then I realized, oh, damn, if I'm continuing this good, it's going to end up with me being called in. And I don't want.
Yeah, but wouldn't you get, like, if you do really well, wouldn't you get, like, a job that doesn't involve running in the mud?
You don't know.
You just didn't want anything.
Yeah, so I started to perform horribly.
Okay.
And she, when the psychologist was evaluating me, she was looking at that. And then it's like, what happens here? Because after this, you lost your intelligence? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I said how it was. I said, actually, we had, in the band, we had an earlier drummer before we became Sabaton, and he had to go and do the military service. And it was too far away. We couldn't rehearse. Eventually, he had to quit the band.
Right.
And it was his biggest regret for a very long time. And I thought, if I'm going to go into the military, I'm going to lose the opportunity to be in a band. And when I get back, maybe there's no band for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to screw it away for being a muddy guy in the trenches.
Yeah, in
if
the
it would
Swedish
be,
trenches.
If it would be a pilot thing, maybe it's different. But so I told her that this is the story. And she's like, yeah, do you think that you're going to get away with that? I said, well,
Not now.
It's that. And then she asked me, what is your... And I said, I want to be a fighter pilot. She said, you cannot be because you've screwed up here. And I said, I want to be a submarine guy maybe. And then she's like, no, it's going to happen. Then I said, okay, then I want to be a crazy guy with a rifle in the woods and shooting everything I see. Okay. And then she says, yeah, okay, I see. And then she wrote reserves.
All right, so you didn't have to get called up at all.
No. Then it was the end of this.
Yeah, there are certain situations in life that certain people get lucky because you don't know. You know, he might have ended up on, a psychologist that was a little bit less inclined to let him go. Maybe she's like, listen, you're going to the infantry. You tried to cheat it. We caught you. Go in. You know what I mean?
Now, I knew a couple of people that, they were like conscientious objectors, and they didn't do their military service, but they had to do service to society. Like one had to be a fireman's apprentice for is it like a year and a half, something like that? Is that how long it was? So you didn't have to do that?
Nothing.
And you didn't say to her, okay, if I can't be a fighter pilot, and I can't be a submarine ace, and if I can't be the guy that goes crazy in the woods, then I'm going to write dozens and dozens of songs about military history, and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are going to listen to them.
I didn't say that, but I should have.
Can we put missed opportunities in front of Per? Something right there? Because it would have been a perfect time to really stake your future out. Funny, flying aces and submarine aces, something, people that have, sank 5 ships and stuff. I'm not certain when they started taking the term ace, but I do know where the ace comes from 50 years before that in American English, using for the ace of your pitching staff, the ace, your ace player, the ace. And it doesn't come from the card ace. It doesn't come from that. It comes from a baseball player named Asa Brainerd from the 1860s, his team just called him their ace because his name was Asa and he was so. And other teams said, well, this guy's our ace.
And that.
Well, you learn something every day. I mean,
when you are watching Sabaton Sports History.
Sabaton Sports History. Can we get a logo? Well, for Sabaton History and Sabaton Sports History and Sabaton How to Avoid Doing Your Military Service History, well, that is all for today.
A very educational episode. Thank you for watching.
See you next time.
that was really funny. So yeah, guys, tell me if you liked my reaction. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. It was very interesting. And it shows. Listen, I like the war. Any war is not black and white, because it's very easy to vilify the Nazis. And they're making it easy for the world. I mean, it's not like in the First World War, for example, vilifying the Germans was much more difficult from an objective point of view because you're like, well, okay. Were they the only aggressors? Were they the only ones who wanted a war? Or was a war on the horizon anyways? But in the Second World War, I mean, with all the horrific things that the Germans did, it's very difficult to say, oh, well, they're not the only ones who did horrific things. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know, guys. If you like my reaction, leave a like, subscribe, and see you guys next time. See you guys.